got into 3D printing was during my senior year of high school. We had a new mentor come into the shop and give us a 3D printer and show us how to operate it. We happened to need a couple of 3D printed spacers for the robot parts, and I happened to be the only person in the shop at the time who knew how to operate that printer. And that essentially devolved into our coach Fred relying on me to put new parts into the printer and print things out and get all of our printers running, and it really just devolved into me running 5 printers at once for our build season. So I was in charge of all of our printers, and I helped we printed a lot of robot parts that year, and I helped get them all out. I think the thing that really appealed to me with 3D printing was the way, once I realized, like once I had learned how to operate them and what I was doing, the world kind of opened up to me. I realized, like, hey, wow, I can really just make whatever. When I was a lot younger, I was one of those kids who was always coming up with bizarre ideas, things that I thought would be cool to make and stuff. And the same roadblock that I always hit when I was younger was, being a dumb little kid. I don't know how to source metal, I don't know how to cut metal, I don't know how to injection mold anything.
They won't let you play with that.
They won't let me play with metal. But also when I was younger, 3D printing wasn't quite a thing yet. So I was introduced to 3D printing. When I learned about it, it really opened up my world, and I realized, like, I can take all of these ideas that I have and actually create a physical object based on them and make them reality. What do I do now?
Yes.
Currently, I guess you could say I'm a little bit of a hobbyist. I kind of just do it for fun and whatever I feel like making. I've used my experience in robotics to create a robot for a competition called the Space Elevator Race. That robot actually won the engineering award at this competition, which is given to the robot that the judges deem is the most innovative, has the most innovative design. So I do a little bit of robotics work here and there. I also just kind of make stuff for the fun of it that I think could be useful. So this is a 3D printed model of the Master Sword, ignoring the terrible paint job I did on it.
Where's the Master Sword from?
Master Sword is from The Legend of Zelda. Everyone's heard of it. This model, because I only had fairly small 3D printers, was printed in multiple sections. You can see the divides along the blade and down the seam of the handle. And then I glued it together and painted it. Because it's 3D printed and glued together, it's actually not very strong, so I can't necessarily swing this at all, but it's a pretty alright looking replica of the item from the games.
What good uses does 3D printing have in today's modern world? And
Well, given the many different styles of 3D printers there are, it really depends. For example, the Lego company 3D prints prototypes of bricks before they're actually made molds of and sent to the production line. But they do that with 3D printing because it's cheap, it's relatively quick, and it's easy to use. So while the technology is still developing every day, and there's always new things being discovered with it, it really depends on what level you're operating with, but there's a lot you can do with them. So this is a fully 3D printed wind-up car. It prints on 2 cards, sort of like a pop-out model kit. What's cool about this is it has a 3D printed spring in it. So as you wind it up, the spring coils up, and because of the flexibility of the plastic, but it also wants to return to its original shape, so when I let go of it, the wheels spin. It's got a gearing system in it so that the wheels spin much faster than the main gear is spinning, and it also has, utilizing the flexibility of the plastic, if I turn, it'll wind up the spring while ratcheting itself within the gear. So now I can put it on a surface and it will attempt to drive away. This is my space elevator robot named Dawn. I designed every single part on this robot and then 3D printed it, with the exception of the electronics and magnets. Basically, the goal of the robot is to climb a long strip of caution tape, and in order to achieve that, the robot has to be able to be latched onto the tape and have a climbing mechanism. So the way I designed Dawn is I wired all of her motors through some magnets so that I can just undo one little latch and open the robot up like so. You'll see here that I 3D printed and then wrapped a little bit of rubber around these tires, which are connected to the motors. And I 3D printed this springy roller to press the ribbon that it climbs over in the opposite direction. It's got guides all up and down the system to keep the tape straight within the system. You'll notice that this robot is a very bright orange. All of this orange filament is actually a sort of flexible filament called TPU. If you've ever bought a rubber phone case, it was probably made of this material, so you can know what I'm talking about. Part of the challenge was to carry some aluminum weights. I would notice that while the hooks that carry those loads are out in space like this, sometimes they would get caught on the underside of it and your robot would get stuck. So what I designed was the hooks that carry are on a hinge, and I made an orange spring out of the rubber filament so that they spring back against the side of the robot and out of the way of any payloads. Finally, I made some bumpers that press the sensors so that it knows when it's at the top and bottom of the tape, and I mounted all the electronics on the inside behind the plates. That's done.
So I take it 3D printing is not easy.
No, 3D printers are not plug and play, and the cheaper ones like this one can require a little bit more maintenance to operate.
Yes, I would absolutely recommend 3D printing to anyone interested in getting into it. It's fairly easy to find a beginner-friendly printer for a relatively low cost. Basically, just find useful things off Thingiverse and print them, or you can design things that you want yourself and print them. And 3D printing is my absolute favorite thing in the world. So on my really big printer, it has a feature where I can simply remove the build plate like so, and once it's cooled off, I can just go ahead and pop the print off the bed. And there you go. There's a fresh 3D printed part.